Today, IRGC said new procedures. Iran replies Thursday. Trump said possible deal or bigger bombing. Iran will hand its reply to Pakistan on Thursday. That sentence has been in every news bulletin since Wednesday morning and is being treated as a logistical update. It is not a logistical update. It is the single most important diplomatic event since the war began 67 days ago. Let me explain what Thursday's reply actually is and why it is different from everything that has come before it. Iran has submitted proposals before. The Hormuz First Framework in April, the revised proposal through Pakistan in late April, the 14-point plan submitted on Saturday, May 3rd. Each of those was Iran describing what it wanted. Each of those was Iran's opening position in a negotiation whose endpoint had not yet been identified. Thursday's reply is not a new proposal. It is a response to a specific U.S. document. Iran's Foreign Ministry spokesperson Esmail Baghaei said Wednesday that Tehran is reviewing the U.S. proposal and will convey its response to Pakistan after finalizing its views. Iran's ISNA news agency said negotiations are focused on ending the war, adding that the nuclear issue would come at a later stage. And a regional source told CNN that Iran is expected to hand over its reply Thursday to mediators. This is the reply to the American proposal. The U.S. submitted a document with specific terms, the nature of which neither side has publicly disclosed, but which Axios, CNN, NPR, and Al Jazeera have all described as including elements from the original U.S. 9-point plan modified in response to Iran's 14-point counter-proposal. Iran has been reviewing that document for several days. Thursday is when they hand their response back. The significance of a response to a specific document versus a new proposal is the difference between negotiation and clarification. A new proposal says, here is what we want. A response to an existing document says, here are the terms we accept, here are the terms we need modified, and here is why. Thursday's reply will tell both sides whether a deal is achievable on the current terms or whether another round of modification is needed. Iranian ISNA's dismissal of Memorandum of Understanding reports as media speculation is interesting in this context. An MOU is the form a deal takes in its initial stage, a framework document that captures what has been agreed without being the final legally binding treaty. ISNA saying MOU reports are media speculation could mean no MOU is being prepared, or it could mean Iran objects to the American media's framing of what the document is called, or it could mean Iran has not yet agreed to the MOU that was being reported. It does not mean no agreement is possible. It means Iran's public communications are carefully managing how any agreement is characterized before it is signed. Now let me explain what the reply will likely contain, based on everything that has been publicly disclosed about where each side stands. The U.S. 9-point plan, as described in multiple reports, asked Iran for an end to its nuclear weapons program, limits on ballistic missiles, Hormuz open for free navigation, an end to support for armed proxy groups including Hezbollah and the Houthis, and release of U.S. citizens detained in Iran in exchange for lifting the naval blockade, comprehensive sanctions relief, release of frozen Iranian assets worth tens of billions of dollars, and a security guarantee that America would not attack Iran again. Iran's 14-point counterproposal asked for all issues resolved within 30 days, U.S. military withdrawal from the surrounding region, reparations, end to fighting in Lebanon, and a new Hormuz governance mechanism under which Israeli vessels would never pass, in exchange for opening Hormuz under Iranian governance and beginning nuclear talks in a later phase. Those two documents are far apart, but the U.S. reply that Iran is now reviewing is not the original 9 points. It is a modified version that has moved toward Iran's position on some elements. The Pakistani official who told Haaretz that the two sides are getting close to finalizing was not describing the gap between the original documents. He was describing the gap between the U.S. reply and Iran's current expectations. Based on what ISNA said, negotiations focus on ending the war, nuclear comes later. The current document is about the first phase of a multi-phase agreement, not the comprehensive deal. The first phase, which means what Iran is being asked to agree to on Thursday is probably Hormuz opens for free navigation, the blockade lifts, and a framework for nuclear talks to begin within a specified time frame is established, not the nuclear deal itself, the door to the nuclear deal. This distinction is crucial. Iran's 14-point proposal put nuclear in Phase 3, after security guarantees in Phase 1 and Hormuz governance in Phase 2. The U.S. originally wanted nuclear addressed first. The document Iran is reviewing almost certainly puts nuclear in Phase 2 or creates a parallel track. Nuclear talks begin simultaneously with Hormuz opening or within 30 days of it. That is the sequencing compromise that gets both sides to yes. Trump can say nuclear talks are happening immediately. Iran can say Hormuz opened without nuclear surrender. Trump's Truth Social post on Wednesday gave a specific framing of what he considers already agreed, assuming Iran agrees to give what has been agreed to. The phrase, what has been agreed to, is Trump acknowledging that specific elements have already been accepted at the working level. Pakistan's officials saying getting close to finalizing is consistent with this. IRGC's Beijing trip was consistent with this. China would not be involved in the endgame if the basic framework were not in place. What remains is ratification, not negotiation. Iran's ISNA dismissing MOU reports as media speculation is specific in what it is dismissing. The label MOU and the specific framing of American media reports about the document's form. Iran is not dismissing the existence of a document. It is refusing to accept American media's characterization of what the document is called. This is Iran's way of saying, we will describe any agreement we sign in our own terms, not in the terms that American media uses to set the narrative. The deal, if it comes, will be described by Iran as a comprehensive agreement ending the war, not as an MOU. The latter being a term that implies a preliminary document that constrains Iran's future negotiating positions without delivering the full relief Iran has demanded. The distinction between MOU and comprehensive agreement matters for Iran's domestic politics. An MOU sounds temporary. A comprehensive agreement sounds final. Iran needs the document to sound final so that the supreme leader's communication delivered through the motorcycle courier chain can be framed as a decisive victory rather than a preliminary step towards something more. Whatever Thursday's document is called, it needs to be describable as an ending, not a beginning. Now let me explain what the IRGC's new procedure statement contributes to Thursday's reply. The IRGC Navy announced Wednesday that safe and sustainable transit through the strait will be facilitated with the end of the aggressor's threats and in light of new procedures. It thanked ship owners and captains for respecting Iranian regulations. It did not specify what the new procedures are. This statement is operationally coordinated with Iran's foreign ministry statement about the Thursday reply. Both came Wednesday. Both are from different branches of the Iranian state. The IRGC and the Foreign Ministry have different institutional interests. They agree on messaging only when a decision has been made at the level above both of them, the level of the Supreme Leader's office communicating through the motorcycle courier chain. The IRGC's statement is the operational pre-implementation of the deal Iran expects to announce. Before any formal agreement is signed, the IRGC is telling shipping companies, we have changed our approach in the strait. When the deal is announced, the transition from arms seizure operations to facilitated transit under new procedures will look like implementation of an agreement, but the IRGC is actually establishing the new baseline before the agreement, so that the agreement formalizes existing practice rather than requiring a visible change in IRGC behavior. This reduces the domestic political cost for the IRGC. They can say they changed their operational procedures for security reasons, and the deal simply acknowledged what was already happening. The Foreign Ministry statement says nuclear comes later. The IRGC statement says transit facilitated under new procedures. Together, Hormuz opens, nuclear deferred. That is the exact structure of the deal that both sides can describe as a victory. The CMA-CGM Kribi transit in early April, one of the first vessels to successfully use the IRGC escort corridor at the start of the formal toll system, was CMA-CGM, the same company whose San Antonio was struck Tuesday. That company knows both what Iran's new procedures look like when they work and what happens when transit is attempted outside of those procedures. When CMA-CGM sees the new procedures statement from the IRGC on Wednesday, it has the most direct institutional knowledge of what those procedures have meant in practice. If CMA-CGM resumes transit under the new procedures before the formal deal is announced, that would be the strongest possible signal that the procedures are real and that the deal is imminent. Whether Trump can describe that as a win depends on what the specific nuclear timeline commitment looks like. If Iran commits to nuclear talks beginning within 30 days and commits to the IAEA resuming inspections as a confidence-building measure, Trump can say the nuclear process has begun. If Iran commits only to nuclear talks at an unspecified future date, Trump may say that is not enough. The Thursday reply's specific language on the nuclear timeline is the most consequential detail that will not be publicly disclosed. Now, let me explain the Ghalibaf dimension, because it provides context for what Thursday's reply means domestically for Iran in a way that no amount of diplomatic cable analysis can capture. Ghalibaf released an audio message Wednesday asking Iranians to practice frugality and thriftiness. He called frugality a missile that people can fire into the heart of the enemy. He said the U.S. intends to break Iran through economic pressure and asked all intellectuals and specialists to help the government solve war-induced problems. He called on all Iranians to practice saving and encourage others to do the same. This message is addressed to the Iranian public, but its timing, Wednesday, the day before the Thursday reply, is not coincidental. Ghalibaf is doing two things simultaneously. First, he is validating the economic sacrifice that 67 million Iranians have been making for 67 days. 67% inflation, 2 million unemployed, internet blackout, supply shortages. He is saying this was not suffering. This was a weapon. You fired a missile at America's economy with your frugality. What the market did to American gas prices and 49% increase, Spirit Airlines closed, Jeff Olson putting $10 in the tank, was partly your missile landing. This framing converts passive suffering into active resistance, which is the narrative Iran's leadership needs to deliver before any deal that might look like accommodation. Second, he is testing the public's appetite for continued sacrifice versus relief. An audio message asking for thrift the day before a deal answer is either preparing the public for continued war, keep saving, keep enduring, or it is providing the retrospective framing for a deal by saying, we endured, our endurance won, and now we can accept a result that reflects our strength. Both uses of the speech work. If no deal, the speech says, keep going. If deal, the speech says, we won it through your sacrifice. Ghalibaf has covered both outcomes with one audio message. That is the communication of a political leadership that has decided, or is very close to deciding, what Thursday's reply will say, and is managing the public toward both possible framings. The 67% inflation figure, the 2 million unemployed, the 67-day internet blackout, those are the numbers behind Ghalibaf's frugality request. Those numbers are the domestic cost of the war that Iran's population is absorbing. The IRGC generals who are effectively running Iran's strategy know those numbers. They know the domestic pressure is building. And Thursday's reply, whatever it says, is being shaped by the knowledge that the Iranian population has been absorbing 67% inflation for 67 days, and something needs to change. Now, let me add the 1,600 ships, because the humanitarian and economic dimension of the stranded vessels is the most direct link between the Thursday reply and the real world outside of diplomatic documents. 1,600 vessels are stuck in the Strait of Hormuz. CNN reported this on Wednesday. 20,000 seafarers. Shipping companies unwilling to bear the risk of transit. Trump's Project Freedom lasted 48 hours and guided 2 ships. The IRGC's new procedures have been announced but not yet tested. The CMA-CGM San Antonio's crew were injured Tuesday, evacuated Wednesday. The Hormuz closure has brought approximately 20% of global oil trade to a virtual standstill. Each day, those 1,600 ships sit in the strait is a day of compounding global supply chain damage. Food shipments delayed, fertilizer deliveries postponed, electronics components missing from manufacturing supply chains, LNG not reaching the markets that need it for power generation. The 67-day closure of Hormuz has been visible in oil prices. It is becoming visible in commodity prices more broadly. Thursday's reply, if it is a yes that produces a deal, begins the process of moving 1,600 ships out of the strait. Not immediately. Shipping companies will wait for confirmation that the new procedures work before resuming transit. But the direction changes. The oil market prices the expected restoration. Brent begins to fall. Gas prices follow within weeks. The 1,600 ships start moving. If Thursday's reply is a no, or a counterproposal that extends the negotiation by weeks, the 1,600 ships stay put. Brent stays above 120. Gas stays above 440. Ghalibaf's frugality missile keeps flying. And Trump's bombing starts, threat becomes the next negotiating cycle's context. Now let me steelman the possibility that Thursday's reply is not a yes. Iran's ISNA dismissal of MOU reports as media speculation is the most significant cautionary signal of Wednesday. Iran has been in this position before, close to finalizing at the edge of a deal, managing expectations, and the deal has not materialized. April's Islamabad talks were described as promising and produced nothing. The U.S. canceled its envoy's Pakistan flight and told Iran to call. The 14-point proposal was met with, "Can't imagine it would be acceptable." Multiple rounds of optimism in this war have not produced a deal. And the nuclear timeline issue remains genuinely unresolved. ISNA said nuclear comes later, that is Iran's position, but how much later, under what conditions, with what verification requirements applying from day one? Trump's minimum acceptable nuclear commitment, now whatever it is, has not been publicly specified. Iran's maximum nuclear concession, whatever it is, has also not been publicly specified. Later is not a term, a treaty needs a term. If Thursday's reply says Hormuz opens and blockade lifts, but nuclear discussions are deferred to a commission that will meet at an unspecified date, Trump cannot announce that as epic fury's victory over Iran's nuclear ambitions. He needs something more specific. If Iran cannot provide something more specific, Thursday's reply becomes another counter-proposal, and the conversation continues, under the shadow of Trump's much higher level and intensity bombing threat. Here is where the Steelman collapses. The convergence of pressures on both sides by Thursday is unlike any previous moment in this war. Pakistan said, getting close to finalizing. The IRGC announced new procedures. The Iranian Foreign Ministry confirmed a reply is coming. Ghalibaf prepared the Iranian public for an outcome. Trump paused Project Freedom and said, deal possible. Pakistan's Prime Minister called the pause a move that will go a long way. The Pope called for peace. All of that happened within 48 hours of Thursday's deadline. A leadership preparing for rejection does not coordinate its public messaging, its military statements, its diplomatic timelines, and its domestic framing simultaneously in the direction of a deal. What happened between Monday's combat and Wednesday's coordinated messaging looks like a decision being implemented in stages, not a decision still being deliberated. Thursday's reply is the implementation of a decision that appears to have already been made. The deliberation was Monday and Tuesday. The combat tested each side's resolve. The IRGC's new procedures and the Foreign Ministry's confirmation of the Thursday timeline are the implementation of a decision reached in the 48 hours after Project Freedom's pause. Watch Thursday's reply, not whether it is yes or no. Watch the specific language on the nuclear timeline. That is the one variable that determines whether Thursday produces a deal announcement or another round of negotiation. Everything else, Hormuz, blockade, sanctions, assets, appears to be agreed. The nuclear timeline language is the last gap. IRGC said new procedures. Iran replies Thursday. Trump said possible deal or bigger bombing. 1,600 ships are waiting. Ghalibaf called frugality a missile. The Pope called for peace. Thursday answers all of it. If you found this useful, push back on it in the comments. I will see you in the next one. Let me also add what the Thursday replies timing tells you about the Supreme Leader's courier chain. Mojtaba Khamenei communicates through handwritten notes carried by motorcycle couriers on back roads to his undisclosed location. The New York Times described this mechanism in detail. The process is slow. It is not designed for rapid decision-making on tight diplomatic deadlines. Iran's foreign ministry saying Thursday, not Friday or next week, means the reply has already been authorized through the courier chain. A Thursday reply announced Wednesday means the document was reviewed, modified, and approved at the highest level before the announcement that it would be delivered Thursday. You cannot promise a Thursday delivery through motorcycle couriers if the Supreme Leader has not already approved the document. The Thursday commitment is itself evidence that the decision has been made. This is the piece of the Thursday announcement that is not being discussed. Iran did not say it will try to have a reply by Thursday, pending further discussions. Iran said Thursday, present tense committed. That level of specificity requires authorization that could only have come through the courier chain in the preceding 48 hours. The same 48 hours that included Monday's combat, Tuesday's pause, and Wednesday's coordinated IRGC foreign ministry messaging. The Thursday announcement is the public face of a private decision that was made by Motorcycle Courier on Monday night or Tuesday. What the couriers carried was the Supreme Leader's authorization for the terms Iran will agree to. Thursday is the delivery date for the formal transmission to Pakistan. The content was decided earlier. Now let me add the one more external pressure that is not being reported enough. Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif said Wednesday that he was grateful for Trump pausing Project Freedom and that the pause would go a long way towards advancing regional peace, stability, and reconciliation during this sensitive period. Pakistan's Prime Minister is not usually this effusive about diplomatic gestures that have not yet produced results. He is grateful before the deal is announced. That is either Pakistan managing expectations upward, we expect this to work, or Pakistan communicating confidence about what Thursday's reply contains. Pakistan has held every document in this negotiation. Pakistan knows what Iran's Thursday reply will say. Pakistan's Prime Minister calling the pause something that will go a long way is Pakistan signaling in the understated language of diplomatic communication that the Thursday reply is what everyone hopes it will be. Thursday is the answer. Everything Wednesday was set up. And the setup looks very much like the preparation for a yes. If you found this useful, push back on it in the comments. I will see you in the next one. If you found this useful, push back on it in the comments. I will see you in the next one.